pressure being in, even out. Nothing like the pressure tuning in front of everybody. Good morning, everyone. We're going to start with a song by Jeff Groban called You Raise Me Up.
Maybe you should text somebody and see if they can hear. Maybe they've got everybody muted.
You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas.
You all have to stay muted or we can all hear you here.
Just cut you out.
Good morning and welcome to this wonderful celebration of life for Jan Jedlicka. And I'm so grateful. We have 3 screens of people on Zoom this morning. So thank you for those who are here in person, but thank you for everyone who is here virtually. I'm Pastor Kay Glennon, for those of you who haven't met me. And it has been my privilege and my honor to be Jan's pastor for the last 8 or so years. A wonderful, wonderful woman, and it is my pleasure to be here with all of you. The nature of calendar time is linear. It's made up of beginnings and endings. Beneath time, there is eternal depth. While something may come to an ending on the surface of time, its presence, meaning, and effect continue to be held and integrated into the eternal. We gather today to celebrate the life of Jan, whose spirit has moved on from our time into eternal time. A time beyond endings, where nothing is canceled or lost, but where the spirit arrives home. This is a song I'm sure Jan's sung many times with us. It's the hymn of promise.
We're not getting it.
So if y'all just make sure that your cell phones are turned on. Sorry, Dan, you're gonna have to find a better way. Please join me in the unison prayer.
To hear others, please join audio. Dial in, call using internet audio.
Mute yourself, or everybody here can hear you. If you would join me in the unison prayer. Holy One, that we cannot see Jan with outward eyes. She dwells in that safe place in our hearts, no form or night or pain can reach. Let us not look for her only in memories, where we would grow lonely without her. She would want us to find her in presence, beside us when beauty brightens, when kindness glows, and music echoes eternal tones. When she continues to inspire us, to enter each day with a generous heart, to serve her call of courage and love until we see her beautiful face again, in that land where there is no more separation, where all tears will be wiped from our minds, and where we will never lose her again. Jarrett and Steve have prepared something for you, so we're going to move them out front a little bit.
heartfelt thank you for the love and support you've provided. It felt like a very short time, but it's one that we're incredibly grateful to have had with Mom. So just a couple things I'm going to read and share with you. You guys all know she's an amazing woman, and I struggled to find words. So Pete wrote a nice note that I'm going to read, and then I have stolen shamelessly from people who are smarter and wiser than me to share my experiences. So this first is for Pete. It has only been a week, and I miss my mom terribly. I was lucky to have her in my life for an additional week after moving into hospice, but had plenty more to tell and express to her. It is something I regret and will learn from. In life and now in death, she was always a teacher. My mom was one who always would express her love, her views, her frustrations, and her hopes. She was passionate about so much, whether it was the environment, equality, grandkids, or improving the lives of others. With everything she did, she made an impact, not just an impression, but a deep and lasting impact. Her greatest successes many times would be deemed by most as failures. She mostly championed causes with little hope or far from the finish line. She provided the initial push or rock solid foundation for things to succeed and let others proceed to the finish. Not the most glamorous or fulfilling roles people gravitate to. She never minded being that person, selfless to her core. One of her many outstanding qualities was the ability to show empathy and then turn that into action. She took up hundreds of causes not necessarily dear to her heart, but due to people close to her heart. She always put herself into other people's shoes and vowed to make a difference. My mom's calendar was a thing of legend. If your request was penciled in on the date, it meant you had an 80% chance, which was good since she tended to book at least 14 hours of commitments each day. She could not bear to say no to anyone or any cause. She had a bias for helping everyone and would commonly be overbooked. My mom has always been a fighter. We assumed she would give her recently diagnosed cancer the same fight, but she decided she could not. I was confused, upset, and even disappointed in her, but not as the weeks wore on. I came to peace with it. In my mind, she had fought for so many years against many opponents and challenges that she had nothing left. She had given all her effort and energy to others, that when the time came to defend herself, she had nothing left. It is a tough realization to accept, but it brings me great joy knowing that her sacrifices over 70 decades has helped countless people and causes. In one of my visits to the condo after she went to hospice, the condo was empty. My dad at her side, and I was able to observe the things that meant most to her: friends, family, and values. Her walls were covered with hundreds of pictures of friends, family, and nature. Her bookshelf was packed with books and titles that exemplified her: compassion, prayer, love, discovery, imperfection, life, awakening, grace. Mountains of cards were delivered each day, and the burden of bringing them in from the mailbox carried both sadness and joy. A measure of one's person can be measured by the friends they keep, and my mom's friends are second to none. That's great. So where to start with my mom? Pete did a great job of doing that. You know, we all know her differently: daughter, sister, friend, wife. Pete and I, mom. I'm going to start with a woman, and I guess I've been drawn to strong women throughout my life. It started with my mom, has moved to my wife and my friends and my daughter. Marianne Rademacher is her name, and she seemed to embody a lot of what I was thinking as I thought about my mom. I'm going to start with live with intention, walk to the edge, listen hard, practice wellness, play with abandon, laugh. Choose with no regret, continue to learn, appreciate your friends, do what you love, live as if there is all there is. So Pete talked about books and how important they were to my mom. Many of you might not know that when I was young, I struggled reading. And I was diagnosed early with a form of a disability, and I couldn't read. And my mom, fearlessly unaccepted, didn't take that as a response and scoured the area to find someone who could help me. And she found someone in Burlington who taught me to read, how to make my eyes work together so that I could read. And now I have, like my mom, a room full of books that I love. I am so grateful for what she did. My favorite author is a woman that had a strong protagonist, and I assume I saw that in my mother. My mom had this ability to read and always have a quote that she would share. And so again, I tended to do the same thing. And so I found another great quote about courage. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow. And I think that is what my mom did. All the causes that she championed, all the things she did. She also gave back and gave back so many to others. I have adopted some of that, not to the level she has. And whenever I have a chance to speak, I also talk about being a humble servant. And what's interesting is I say it, but my mom exemplified it. She never was the one taking the bow, speaking out. She was just there supporting. And so she lived simply, but lived an incredible life. And so again, I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, being on the Zoom call. And I'm just going to leave you with this one last thing, because I think if I think about my mom, this encompasses her, which is a living eulogy. She danced, she sang, she took, she gave. She loved, she created, she dissented, she enlivened. She saw, she grew, she sweated, she changed, she learned, she laughed, she shed her skin, she bled on the pages of her day. She walked through walls, she lived with intention. Thank you.
Thank you, Jed. Hoping you all can hear still well enough. The scripture reading I chose for this morning is short and sweet. It's Micah 6:8. Listen here, mortal. God has already made abundantly clear what good is, and what Yahweh needs from you. Simply do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Would you pray with me? Holy One, our hearts are a mixture of joy and sadness this morning. Be with us as you are always with us. But help us especially to feel your energy and your comfort and your strength with us this morning as we lift up this wonderful woman who has raised up each of us. And may the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with love and insight and grace. Amen. I'd like to start by giving you each a word. I like to ask folks, if you had one word to describe Jan, and you each have to have a different word, what would your word be? You have to talk behind your masks. I know it's weird, but you have to do it. Compassion. You have to talk louder behind your masks.
Funny.
Funny? What else? Kindness.
Loving.
Gentle, loving.
Insightful.
Inclusive, insightful. Committed. Genuine.
Forceful.
Forceful. Look out.
Mystical.
Mystical. There's a good word. Anything else? Generous. thoughtful,
Seeker.
a thinker,
Involved.
involved,
Dedicated.
dedicated,
Faithful.
faithful,
Courageous.
courageous, gracious.
All
I only gave you one. You only did two? All right. What an amazing slew of words. If only all of us could come to the end of our lives and have people say all of that about us. It is truly a testimony to a life well lived. It always fascinates me how a person's personality really seems to take root when they're young. Have you ever noticed that with your kids, and as they grow, they kind of just become more of the same? I was talking to her sister Kay, who was the oldest of the siblings, and Jan was second under her, and she said, you know, even though Jan was the second child, she always had that firstborn air about her, you know, that responsible, powerful, no nonsense. I know what I think. I know I have strong opinions. I know what we should be doing. The take charge person that she really was for the rest of her life. That started when she was young. Kay said, you know, that in charge kind of thing happened when she and Jim and Jan used to travel together, apparently. Kay said, you and she both packed a bag and Jan did everything else. What a way to travel. But Jim tells me it worked for the two of them. That she was that, all right, we got stuff to do, we're gonna get it done, organized, responsible, no nonsense person. And he was that, oh yeah, sure, hi honey, we'll get around to it. It's that easygoing, loosey-goosey was his word, I'm gonna say, not mine. But the loosey-goosey, fun-loving of the two of them. And they complemented each other for 49 years of marriage. And you could see the love between them until the end. Jan was also the, from early on, Kay tells me, kind of the head of the family, even when she was young. That she was the rudder, Kay said. You know, she kept everybody going in the right direction. She loved family above all things. She may have had 14 hours booked on that calendar, but it's my understanding that if Pete called and said the grandkids needed to be babysitted, everybody else got wiped off the calendar. She wanted to be with all of you more than anything. She was the one who made sure people got together for holidays. She was the family organizer. We are going to keep meeting and we're going to keep getting together, and we will uphold the family traditions and make those an important part of our lives. And if she didn't tell you enough, boys and grandkids and Paula and Shannon, she loved you all more than anything. I heard about all of you multiple times. We prayed about you here multiple times. You too. We prayed for you too, Jim. And she was extremely proud of all of you. Jan was, like I said, Jan was also sort of this, she was in some ways a conundrum. While she was the person who was supportive and kind and caring and there when anybody needed her, she also had that tough as nails, no nonsense quality about her. So, Kay, I'm going to share your story. She said that, he said at one point when she had been widowed and she lost her job, she was talking to Jan on the phone and was saying, you know, just sort of going off the deep end about life. And Am I ever going to find another job? And I don't know what's going to happen to me. And I'm going to end up on the streets. And Jan very firmly said, there's no bag ladies in our family. And I can just hear that in her voice, can't you? Just sort of this, okay, get a grip. It's all going to be fine. No bag ladies in our family. So I chose the scripture that I chose because it's so very clearly my experience of Jan, and it was echoed in what the two of you said this morning as well. That she was the quintessential person who does justice and loves kindness and walks humbly with God. The justice piece is just so clearly Jan, and it's my understanding that it's always been Jan. She's always been a champion for fairness and for equality and for truth and for justice, that she took the boys to feed the homeless when you were young and deliver meals on wheels, to instill that importance in helping others from little on. She was part of my social justice and outreach committee, and I'm dearly going to miss her. She always seemed to have her pulse on the community and what was going on. Who needed help, where there was a project we could get involved in, where we might be able to donate things or paint a room or pack boxes full of food or clean out invasive species. She was on top of all of it. And so she was often the one who volunteered to be in charge of a project. And if she wasn't in charge, then she was part of it anyways. For the 8 years I've known her, she has done so much. I was having a hard time listing it all, from cleaning up at the Eco Justice Center to serving hot meals at the hot meal program to collecting school supplies and other things for different charities to marching for LGBT rights. To help me out, Sim. We did so many things. We packed bags for Meals on Wheels participants, and I can't even remember. And on top of that, she was a regular volunteer here, being a liturgist and an usher and bringing goodies. She was always in something, and now I know why, because she booked 14 hours a day for all of that. And I'm sure she did a ton of stuff with the Sienna Center and the Eco Justice Center that I don't even know about. A champion for justice and what's right and what's good and what's fair. To love kindness. You've all said it, and I can't tell you how many times I've thought it, but she is one of the most kind, most thoughtful people that I have ever met. As an example, we went on a women's retreat, and I think it was last year, and she didn't like the 2-day retreats, so she wasn't coming along. But I got to the room at the Sienna Center where we were having our women's retreat, and there was a pot of tulips with a little card on it that it said something clever, like, I hope lots of wonderful things bloom here or something. And it was anonymous, but I knew it was Jan, and I called her on it later. And sure enough, it was her way of being there for us and showing her support and her, giving her prayers and her love. So she was a part of us anyways. That's just one small example of, I imagine, millions of kindnesses that she's done. How many of you heard from Jan at some point? You all can raise your hands on Zoom too, because I'm guessing you all received it. Yeah, you all waved at me. She was infamous for her cards, whether it was just to say, hi, I'm thinking of you, or to say, I appreciate you and something you did, or to celebrate a special day with you. We had a care list, and by golly, she was on top of me if that care list was changing, because she sent those people a card every month. So if you take only one page out of Jan's book, it's that Those little things mean so much to people. And send cards again. We're not good at it. It's easier to dash off a little email or a little text, and those are good too, don't get me wrong. But a card is something special. It means somebody went out of their way to think of you, to buy the card, to buy the stamp. That was her thoughtfulness. That was quintessential Jan. I believe you told me that she was very clear about kindness with the two of you when you were growing up too. Never underestimate the power of kindness. That should be all of our mottos, especially in the world today. And the last, to walk humbly with God. Jan is one of the most spiritual people that I have ever met. And she worked at it. She was raised Catholic. She brought her boys up Catholic. But you know, she wasn't afraid to branch out when she was frustrated with the dogma and the principles and the actions of the Catholic Church. She wasn't afraid to seek truth wherever she could find it. And yet she kept one foot in the Catholic Church and in the traditions and in the part of it that really mattered to her. You know, she was an associate member of the Siena Center, the Dominican sisters, who are all awesome, by the way. They're like a unique brand of people in and of themselves. But that associate membership says, I'm committed. I am serious about supporting the mission and the ministries of this place. And she was. And so she maintained that part of her spirituality while putting one foot in this community of Sacred Journeys, which is a new progressive community of seekers. And she fit well in both, and she, you know, brought insights from each to the other. But again, she worked at her spirituality. She listened to speakers, and she read books and books and books. She took classes. She went on retreats. She did our Theology on Tap group, which meant she could have a glass of wine while we talked about God. She was always searching for something new, and yet she did do it humbly. Yes, she preached at the Siena Center, and yes, she preached here for me when I was gone, but she did it in a way that was very personal. She allowed herself to be vulnerable, to share her own spiritual struggles and her own life struggles so that people could identify. She was also very good at questions. She had lots of really, really good questions. And she asked me a really good question about maybe 6 weeks ago. I was talking to her on the phone, and she said, "Hey, I have a question for you. What is the purpose of suffering?" I said, "Well, that's an easy question. I'll just dash off an answer to that. I think we need a face-to-face with that one." And sadly, we never really got around to having that deep face-to-face conversation. But I came across something when I was researching a sermon on wounded healers a couple weeks ago. And I called Jan up and I read this to her. It's by St. John of the Cross. "I saw the river over which every soul must pass to reach the kingdom of heaven. And the name of that river was suffering. And I saw the boat which carries souls across the river. And the name of that boat was love." Jan knew that she was being supported in love across the river that she was struggling to get across. She told me in September that God felt closer to her than God had felt in a long time. And she told me, every time I talked to her, she told me how wonderful Jim was being, and her boys were being, and her family was being, how supportive everyone was. And yes, the basket of cards that she has, and how appreciative she was of people who not just sent a card, but also told her how much she meant to them. You all took that page for at least a moment out of her book and sent her those cards, and it had an impact, a huge impact. She knew that she was being carried by all of your love. It was probably about a year or so ago that Jan must have figured out that she had a duplicate book in her library. And so she gave me one of them. It's A New Harmony by John Philip Newell. And there it had underlines in it. So I'm sharing you some of the part that she underlined because I think it shows how deep her spirituality was. We are not simply made by God, we are made of God. Which is to say that holy wisdom is deep within us. Sacred creativity is at the core of our beings. The divine passion for what is just and right is our true heart's desire. And above all else, it is to say the love longing of God is at the core of our being. We are made of the one. Underneath everything, there is eternal presence. There is love energy. There is collective unconscious. Call it God, goddess, spirit, a ground of our being. I don't know what, higher power, whatever you want to call it. There is something deeper than that which meets the eye. And Jan knew that so intimately. And she knew that the way to get there wasn't necessarily through some creed or some doctrine, but to get there, one has to go inside. Underneath the ego and the desires and the wants and our baggage that we have to peel away layer after layer to get to the true self, which is where we find God. Deep, deep within each of us. And so I encourage you to also take that journey. To trust the path, the same path that Jan took. The path to self, the path to oneness, the path to peace and harmony, and being able to reach out in kindness and unconditional love. I think she would say to you, you know, I'm not gone. She'd say, I am one with everything. And so I am more present to you than perhaps I ever have been. Because you used to see me as just a person who was in a place. Now perhaps you will see me as everywhere, in everything, at all times, and in all places. Look for me, listen for me, feel for me. I am here, I am with you. Amen. Sadly, I didn't know that Jan was a singer until just recently, or I would have made her part of the choir, added to her 14 hours a day. But apparently she was part of a choir at one point in her life when she was part of the Catholic Church, and I am trusting that they sang this song on Eagles. My rock and all my Would you pray with me once? Holy One, while there is sadness in separation, we are also immensely grateful to have shared life with Jan, whose beautiful light still shines and continues to teach us and love us. Jan was a servant, a soul filled with generosity, compassion, kindness, and unconditional love. Jan made a difference in our lives and in many, many lives by following the call of the Spirit and giving her authentic self to the world. Though she has now made her transition from this life to that which lies beyond, help us to remember that though she has left this earth, she has not left us. She lives on in our hearts, in our memories, in our love, and in our gratitude. So be it. Amen. And we're going out with a fun, uplifting song because Jan said, make the service fun and uplifting and have bubbles. We're holding on the bubbles since we should all be like blowing things at each other right now. So, but this is this is a song that reminds us to live each moment because life is fragile and wonderful and precious. And we'll get there eventually. Y'all have the words though if we don't get there. It's time for living by the association. Can you sing it for us, Jim? You knew this song. You were in the choir too, weren't you? You were. Joyful noise. Not a joyful harmony, I noticed, but like a joyful noise. Technology is great when it works. Here we go. Time for living.
Once more, thank you all for being here. If you're staying for lunch, you just need to go through that door over on the end and into the restaurant area. And anything else we need to say?
No, thank you all for being here.
Go in peace. And thank you everybody on Zoom for being here.
Thank you.
4 pages of people. So I don't know.
That's, oh, there's Kurt Hankey. Oh, that's incredible. Can we get a list? Jennifer Robert.
Did you ask somebody to create a list?
I wasn't sure if it would show up. I didn't even think about there were 80. Actually, can you, if you just switch back, I can take photos. I can get the names. All right. Okay.
Oops.
That's okay.
Hi, this is Reed and Cecilia Green in Bernie, Texas. We wish we could be there with you in person, but God bless you all. God bless your mother. She's a wonderful lady. We'll miss her.
Thank you. Oh, Brett Knapp. That was awesome. Oh, good stuff. Okay, just sit there. Oh, well. Missed a lot of stuff. And thank you for being here. She would have loved to know you guys were here. Oh, she knows. Hey, Shan, do you guys have some just food or cracker or something? Just a little like. Well, yeah, I just think you need some food. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Kane. Thank you for being here. It's so nice. She'd be so. There were over 80 people on the Zoom, so there was a lot. Okay. Cool. Oh, should I play music in here? Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna put the thing back on, Dad.
Yeah, just a bit background music.
When you, there you go. When you've got good material, I tell you, I had early on in my ministry, I had two funeral back, actually men. And sat with their families and they went, they were doing, you can find something good to say about it. So, you know, I get something like this and it's, all I can do is tell what a wonderful person he was. You guys just did a nice job. No, you can always, we can. let it go. We know it's gonna be in here.
That's a good point.
So we love to put on your stand. Oh, on your, oh, looking on that. You can go on that easy, it shouldn't come off then.
All right, bye, everybody. I'm closing up here.